Attention!
Game development is kinda interesting. The best games we've known in our history were built over fixing the mistakes of that developer's past that actually culminated to the peak of those developers' ability. There are a lot of iconic ones, like normally people prefer the second shot of a fighting game than the original run. If it has a third run, it's a bliss. Games like Twisted Metal, if you play it, the car handling takes a while to get used to, but even then, you are probably stumbling on the walls, which is something that the devs went after fixing it, and they did on Twisted Metal 2, considering the best among the PS1 era. It's the small things that only when you get the game to the masses, you can see the obvious flaw within your game. Sometimes, us as fans just wonder what a game could have been if it reached a second try. So we get to today's topic. I name it Irrational Fear, just like me with I surrender! Our minds create the deadliest traps. Back in the day, before the American DLC was introduced, there were this more than rational fear from the sea. For us, it seems like, hey you wussy, stop complaining and hop on the boat. Lord knows all that brave armor that we put up, how fragile it is. When you look at this force of nature, it really puts you on your place, on how puny you are in this earth. A spot that is now occupied by the empty void that is space, and the next entry on your favorite fighting game. And unlike a dev bestowed to look at new entry to the genre, you will find some old fishermen to tell you some tales. I heard they have sea serpents under that sea, and at the end a whole bunch of dirt. I said, where we live on a globe? But what would happen if you could gaslight an entire dev team on these Lovecraftian horrors? I like going against the flow of the meta, so instead of starting at the glorious 91, you know, where Street Fighter 2 started, and we finally had a pretty convincing blueprint of what the genre is capable of. Instead, I'm going to start with a game called Street Smart, based on yours truly. Oh, it's a fighting game closer to a beat 'em up. But even if this was a traditional one, there's this weird feel that is not clicky. What do I mean by that? It's partially because there is this slight delays to the moves, and also you can move while doing it, but there is a close normal, but the distance is really inconsistent. The hitbox doesn't really match perfectly, nor the hurt box, but the enemy hitbox just explodes, hitting you out of the range. They also come out too quickly, so sometimes even if you hit them, they can punish you instantly. But what bothers me the most with this type of game, when you hit the enemy, he kinda slips out of any combo or chain move that you could connect. Sometimes it feels like he's invincible. The arcade version is way better. I call this feel of a game soapy fighting games because everything just slides when it gets hit. Prime example, Shaq Fu. Basically half of the MK clones also come to this category. Fighting Fever, it feels a lot like that too, even if some of these could actually play competitive, sometimes not feeling the pressing of the button, comboing, grinding the gears, but it's not like their fault. It's the equivalent to power crystals. It's not the white girl's fault, it's more like Shadow the Hedgehog propaganda. That creates a clear view for...
Okay, so you played Street Fighter 2 Turbo on...
Street Fighter 2 Turbo, prehistoric.
Come on, you know this guy, right?
No, I've never seen him before.
Different from others, just seeing that Capcom had the magical potion, and partially is because of how the game was animated and how the frame data works. Still, don't get it twisted, this game was really hard to get into. What I mean by that is not because the game is possibly filled with Vega mix-up, Bibson unpunished kebab move, and fireball spams, which is something that one could assume by looking at the latest tournament of Super Turbo. I'm talking about the precise inputs and meaning for your actions. No other game you were forced to do moves with this agglomerate of commands, clearly motion sickness. Normally was pushing 2 buttons, done! Street Fighter 2 World Warrior, different from any other game at this time, was the vanguard to something that is not about competing about meaningless numbers on the screen or who stayed the longest, but rather a fight between 2 players that you actually were taking into consideration movement, position, of course, and timing. It's like a sweet conversation with a jilf. Alright, look at this emoji movie, but in 87, called Fightingames. It's an FPS. Yeah, it allows 16 player, of course. How much does it take to consideration on map design? Like, I'm placing this for cover. Which points of advantage you could take from your enemy. Things that we take for granted in modern gaming. So when we go back, just the clicky feeling alone, where it's smooth and precise response of the input. The thing that they consider a bug, which is combos itself, and also canceling moves. Just, it really made it feel like it was well planned. To explain it better, if you change the knockback on the characters, if you change the frame data or how fast the fireball comes out in Street Fighter 2, it really shatters this little reality that the game is in. If you make moves push back on hit too much, you cannot combo. If you put too little of it, you can combo everything. If you think about block strings as something actually special, if you make the fireball give too much advantage for somebody who's casting, that would make the one of the players who are just sitting there and taking everything. When you add the idea that they didn't know that you could cancel moves, something like strong punch, Hadouken, it could have a lot of hit stun, making it basically impossible to get out of it. It's like they stumbled on a magic potion. But just like Marijoa, if you want a good life, either be a rat or you gotta climb them walls to be treated as shit. Because even in a perfect utopia, we have some haters. Street Fighter 2 has a learning curve where if you don't know a matchup, you are more fragile to be scrubbed out of the match, vulnerable to simple but effective strats. Call it scrub it out. Even more if you consider that people were still learning how to correctly execute some of these moves. Remember, we are talking about the first 2 years of life of Street Fighter 2. So things like jump, bam, bam, cross is just as effective as anything else. I will come back to this later, cause we arrive at 93 and SNK, after the success of Fatal Fury, aka Garou and Street Smart, we're looking for something new, but a little bit more strategic and more of a response to Street Fighter 2, Art of Fighting. One of the angles that I heard first-hand accounts that SNK in Japan was doubling down on how graphically superior it is. The resolution on the sprites being bigger and occupying that much of the screen is really something. When we run the matchup, let's go. We can see, yeah, it's more defined in different areas. Look at them muscly muscles and the way they show more of the fabric and folds, and the face of the character is actually getting pretty ugly when you scab a lot, and the animations look way more coherent. Some of them even got way more weight than the others. Look at how Sagat slides everywhere and Ryu is dancing. But does the ad match the product? Or is this Mac Chicken too tight? Because apparently Street Fighter Alpha and 2 have the same size for their sprites, and their improvement, ooh-wee. And when you actually play the game and dive into understanding it, instead of just passing by as a tourist, the message is clear. Art of Fighting was striving to actually fix some of the complaints that came from Street Fighter. That's why I bought Fatal Fury at the start of this conversation. It's pretty standard. Like move, jumping, positioning, it's a normal, it's kind of too normal. It feels like a more refined Street Smart, even with a 2-player mode, feeling like more of a beat 'em up. It's also from SNK, by the way, but with meaning to this special. The classic triangle that Street Fighter 1 tried so hard to not look like my deceased uncle, and just leave the money for the next generation, god damn it. First, I think on its surface it's pretty easy to see how adding a whole stamina bar influences this game. It's actually a spirit bar. A stamina bar would be influenced on pressing buttons, walking, dashing, like Karate Master 2, the knockout blow. This only influences your special attacks. And of course, I need to bring the first main complaint about Street Fighter 2.
No way he actually counted him. No shot. 62 times that Joker did yesterday. Anyway, if you spam the same 2 moves in a fighting game over and over again, not only do I hate you as a player, I begin to hate you as a human, because at this point, either go into the lab and learn the game, or stop playing the fighting game, because you're doing absolutely nothing.
If that was your mama on the ground, would you want a reversal?
Well, preach.
Nice done back in the day would be mixed with different levels of player. When a large group of people try to stand under a banner, they try to simplify it to a line that maybe expresses the whole movement. And to this day I find it kind of funny that even if the time has passed, when streamers start to rage about a certain special, I always look at the chat and I see the phrase, "Stop using magic." And on its simplicity, it really flanderizes one of the biggest complaints with the game, for the good and for the bad of the series, even reverberating on individuals that think highly of themselves without actually playing the fucking game. It's that easy jab that is unquestionable that every game has. Doesn't that game has infinite fireball pressure? Just stop using magic. Doesn't your game have a fruity kid jumping CD everyone? Chris players are bitches. Isn't your game a spam of Morrigan, Virgil? Fuck Chris G. Ain't your game played on a bathroom? When they take a shower, it's a problem. And Art of Fighting introduced the Spirit Bar. It's actually pretty interesting. Instead of going for the lazy solution, they actually made the moves just disappear mid-range or not even create a fireball per se. Moves to start slower or even do no damage or no range at all. And to resupply the Spirit Bar, you gotta hold the button and it will make a key charge animation. Now I know the groove where it come from. In theory, it's a great idea. A character with a great special attack will use more energy and end up on overburn, leaving them open to a jumping or one of these traveling across the screen moves. And in case that's not enough, you can taunt your enemy out and make them lose the Spirit Bar and not have a spam anymore. Pretty cool, huh? But this does not end right here. Let's talk about fireballs in general. Normally when you throw a fireball, let's say you have 3 options: block, jump, and the third option, of course, why you keep choosing to get hit. Let me illustrate why this is so scary. Blanca Electricity is a non-plus move, which just means advantage, and you are locked out of pressing buttons. Alright, just imagine there is a mini Blanca coming at you, and a guy right behind him on some TF2 conga line. Would you rather take it no diddy, the advantage, sooner or later? Sooner lowers the advantage of the guy when he gets close to you, while later, meaning going back or just standing, give something to do with that advantage. And you know, some characters like Dawson have the luxury to punch and take the damage and trade the damage with the fireball, while jumping is the best, which is to punish the move is done while the fireball is coming out, it's being casted. Some games like KOF having different jump heights open for some other possibilities, like actually catching the conga guy, or giving less time for people to punish you. And you can also air-to-air people off when they're trying to jump with you. But now we are starting to get on the risky business. But why am I explaining this to you? You're probably a fighting game master at this point, known on the martial art of Twitter tech and punch matrix. Well, because in this game you can just punch them or kick them. I seen people throwing the term dispel, no kidding. Some people would just frame this as your gimmick fireball response. Yeah, no commands or even some kind of additional frame data, just raw 2-frame jab dissipating, pretty similar actually, and making basically somebody throwing the fireball use this Spirit Bar for free. Add a taunt to it, bam, no range to that magic of yours. But they were not done yet. They offered a wall jump to every character that I think it was a misplay because it kinda serves no purpose in my opinion. There's a lot of characters in other games with it and you don't really see them dealing with fireballs like that. And if you think about it, they are kind of so crazy into fixing this complaint that there's already 3 or 4 mechanics to deal with this problem, but they would add another one. This game has 4 buttons. There are 2 weak buttons, punch and kick, that when you press them, the strong button transforms into the latest button you pressed. And while you are on the ground, if you press a combination of two buttons, it becomes a third button. I would call it a medium. And of course, the taunt button. Nice. So here's your question for today. How you throw a slower fireball? This is not a trap, there is a way. Doubling up the direction of the command, double quarter circle forward, and double charge technically, is actually the way to go. That really creates an environment where you're not only delaying the fireball, but you will kinda see your enemy crouching full screen weirdly before he throws the magic, which adds time for you to dash up, jump. I know about hiding, but you can't. The buffer works differently. Why are these devs so afraid of fireballs? Even if none of their previous games were dominated by fireballs. It's always been the case that FGC, meaning just the community, would talk about the flaws and the imbalance or unskilled things in fighting games. In this case, Street Fighter 2 had things like dodging, weak fireball, high kick strat. That was already a wall for new players. But this game has no combos. Every move just slides free. You can cancel moves into nothing here. Which means there's no way for you to, I don't know, low kick fireball. There's no pressure, and frame data and pushback doesn't even let you link. Majorly, anything that combos are two hitting moves or preset special combos. Not gonna lie, they really got us right here with the combo stuff. This ad is lying more than your friend inviting you to play League of Legends in 2014. Yeah, you're gonna have fun. You would expect that all that premeditated trimming of fireballs would play into allowing the neutral to shine through and the actual fundies to play out. All that complicated situation with the button layout turns into a really complicated anti-air. Either you have only your special to take people airborne, like your Ryu, which for some reason doesn't hit like the good old, mostly because of the frame added to the startup and rise. Your ground anti-air either doesn't hit that far, or you have to space it out perfectly, which makes the best move to anti-air being in the air, air to airing. And this would be the optimal play. Yeah, that's as far as I thought. It shows that our communication, I would say to this day, isn't clear. Things that can be deceptively overpowered. The more we complain about things, actually creates a simplification of the actual complaint and ends up misleading everybody. New players avoiding the game, and devs trying to fix something that ultimately doesn't pose a threat or isn't even a big problem. Would you say that the fireballs were the problem, even though any other game from there on had fireballs, and even worse fireballs sometimes than Street Fighter 2? Because when you play Art of Fighting, it's clear to see that the things that were most enjoyable of Street Fighter 2 were also the things that were out of this game. But it's not like everybody is eager to play this game, and in a gameplay perspective, doesn't really stand the test of time, nor it proposes any fixes to the pseudo problems it tried to fix, since all of this were ignored for something more practical or interesting, or even an overall tuned down. While other aspects, which had somewhat nothing to do with the fix, actually flourished, being supers, the way you play the game, and all these iconic set pieces, and the characters talking with each other, the bonus actually empowering your moves, which would make SNK double down on stories even more from here on. And you know, they were waiting for the blast on the gameplay department, and when that hit, they would actually create some of the best fighting games ever. But like I said in my last video, you will not convince anybody to play your game fixing someone else's problem. The thing that sometimes make you hate the game doesn't feel right when you take them away, and their obsession with this idealistic way that the magic should be actually took the magic out of the game.
What a gown this will be. Why, it's like a dream. A wonderful dream.